Okay, says it's recording. So I think we are good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I see. And it's red recording.
Yep. Okay, perfect.
Yay.
Do we want to start with words on fire first or the
Yeah.
text?
Maybe we should start with the subject of censorship,
Okay.
Okay.
the book.
So I feel like censorship is just such a big thing. I mean, in Cobb County right now, I mean, just if I hear the word vetting, it's an
Right.
ongoing discussion this year, at least in my school.
Mhm.
And I know that different texts that I've used in the past, just like to start the school year off, we found that we couldn't use them. So it's really disheartening, honestly,
Mhm.
at least from my perspective at my school and just the different things that I've been experiencing this year, which seem a lot different than they have in the past. Um,
And what are some examples of books that you used in the past that you're being told you shouldn't use now, and who's telling you you shouldn't use them? But just because we're not being told anything, like we're just kind of being left out, like, oh, just it's up to your own discretion, but just know the climate. So we've asked like for a list of books we shouldn't read. So I would love to know who's giving you the guidance.
Well, we do have a new principal this year, so I feel like that is, she was the director of the virtual school. So this is really her first time being in an actual school building. So I feel like she is definitely following protocols and ideas from the district.
Mhm.
So she was very straightforward with, she didn't want us having mystery reader this year, which is super sad, unless we were going to ask the parent or a person who was coming in to read the story what book they were reading so we could preview it. But there's just, I mean, even the guidelines, like what makes a book appropriate or not appropriate, there's no clear guidelines.
No.
One of the examples of one of the books that my team and we used the start of every school year was a book called All Are Welcome Here. And I honestly had never even paid attention that there's this one page where it's, depicting different types of families and different of cultures and just inviting that into your classroom. And one of the families was a family with two dads. And we heard through the grapevine that schools were, being told that they couldn't use it at the start of the school year. Um, and it honestly was never, I teach first grade. So for me, a big thing is, their little brains can't wrap their mind around all of the things that are happening in our world. But something that I've always felt that I could do is, we treat everybody with kindness, regardless of, where they come from, their skin color, what they believe, what color they like. And it's kind of funny to me that a book like that is just, being taken away from bookshelves and in libraries. And so it's kind of super sad to be experiencing teaching in this day and time, I feel like.
Yeah, that's insane. I agree. I feel like there was at the beginning of the year, there was definitely like this warning of use Cobb County resources only. Just go to CTLS and refer to CTLS for all resources. Because there were like you said, no clear guidelines on what was acceptable and what are we supposed to not be, letting them read exactly.
Hmm.
Felt like a lot of it was kind of insinuated. So that's what we I kind of feel like since then we've relaxed a little bit more. We've
Mhm.
kind of started going back to some of our go-tos, because we've already, most of us been teaching for years. So to reinvent the wheel and coming up with new lessons because we can't use certain materials was just mind-blowing and discouraging. But definitely making sure that we preview everything if we didn't before.
Mhm.
Anything that looked like it could be controversial, just stay away from it. Um, so I think reading the book and just kind of getting more of a definition and understanding of what censorship is and book bannings and the different, types of censorship was informative. And I had a lot of aha moments where it was like kind of helped me. Well, no, I was gonna say kind of helped me confirm where I stand with it, but not necessarily because I mean, I do feel like it can have its place. Um, but I think more so than before, I feel like it's really doing a disservice to the people and to children and education to ban a lot of these books.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I even think about it like right now we're working on opinion writing in first grade. Like that's our big writing standard right now. And it's almost
Right.
like when you think about censorship and book banning, it's like we're telling these kids ultimately they're not allowed to have an opinion
Hmm.
or to think about something. Yet I'm, teaching them what an opinion is and how to support your opinion. So it's kind
Right.
of like,
Yeah, that's a good point.
yeah, it's just
Mhm.
interesting.
Makes you feel a little hypocritical, like
Definitely.
because I think one of the big things I got from the book was that stood out was censorship is in a sense of suppression of information
Yep.
and taking away one's choice,
Hmm.
and trying to guide or, like I said, take power in what people think, feel, believe, like you said, opinion writing.
Hmm.
So it's almost like you're trying to guide guide them in a way of thinking where a lot of these courses have taught us that we should be helping them to open their minds and to discover their bias and whatnot. But we can't do that when they don't have freedom. We don't have freedom of the books choices that we want to use to, educate them, and for especially the older kids to go
Hmm.
and self-select because they've been removed, or from their libraries, or parents are calling in, don't want teachers teaching it. That happened to me with my seventh grade son. He was reading a book, what was it, last year, called Copper Sun. And when he came home, he's really excited about it. And I was like, well, what is it about? And he was about slavery. And, he started talking about some of the details of it. I was like, oh my, I was like clutching my pride. I don't know if I want you reading that in class either. So I reached out to the teacher and got a copy. I was able to get a copy of the book and did my own like synopsis. And I was like, this is actually a really good book. It's really powerful. I'm going to read it alongside you. But then, like,
Hmm.
midway through, they stopped. It's like parent complaints. And it's like, wow. So we finished reading it uh,
Wow.
Good for
this
you.
summer.
I was going to tell you one more thing. I highlighted something in my book. I can't find this one part, but did you see yesterday there was a tweet that Ragsdale said about something about censorship again, about I'll have to find it later, but it said something like back to censorship. And it said this is a fight against good versus evil. We will always have to censor, what's being put out in our school or whatever. And then I was like, that's so funny because somewhere in the book it said it's not a good versus evil. It's what someone perceives to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if what I perceive is good versus is totally different. It was just crazy that was tweeted out when I was like, no, 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 this isn't a good versus evil kind of thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
not at all. But I always look at books like you said, the slavery topic, or even other books I've read in class where divorce comes up and a mom was cheating on a father. Books, I've always believed, like, open the doorway to have these conversations with children. So you can have that conversation in a safe place, be it your home, not a classroom these days, but it just, these things happen in life. And somewhere in the book, I have to look at it, y'all. I'm sorry, I marked it up. Now I don't find it. I marked 3 good
It's
places.
okay.
But it says, here it says on page 88, it says that books give us emotional practice to go through
Mm-hmm.
realistic experiences like death and then learn how to react to these things. In
Mm-hmm.
my 5th grade class, we read Hatchet by Gary Paulson. And in the book, he tries to take his life. He is down in the dumps. I know, right? Now, like, would I read that? Don't think
Heavy.
so. But it's super heavy. And, knowing my group of 5th graders and the relationship that I had with them and their parents, he tries to end it all, but he's in the bottom, the lowest of low places. And he wakes up the next morning, he realizes that was stupid. I shouldn't ever do that. I mean, that happens in real life, right? And then Brian Robeson realized from then on, he was so much stronger than he thought he was. And he was triumphant in the end. And y'all, I read that book for 10 years. And I just thought, gosh, it gave us a place to talk about things like that. And that's what books do, I think, children's literature, if you use it.
I agree.
Yeah.
Like, just thinking about like our day and age, I mean, like social media, like there is no real conversations anymore. Like there's just this very unrealistic picture of what life is, but there's so much more to everyone's story and things that are happening in our students' lives and our lives. And it's, I feel like books are a good way to start those conversations.
And when you don't discuss these things, like I just think of like any books that we've read, when you don't discuss these things, it says like you're promoting, you're ignoring awareness, and you're creating shame. And that's not what it should be about. If you ignore it and choose to ignore it, like you said, our children are exposed to way more things than we can even imagine, like the social media and everything. And so, but did you guys find it interesting? And I knew this, but I've never really thought about it. Censorship even happened a long time ago when someone said the earth was round, they're like, no, it's not, it's flat, you're banned, blah, blah. It's like that bar is always changing. Like what is appropriate now? Like I watch the TV and I'm like, oh my gosh, and even in magazines, women are in like their underwear on TV now. And I'm like, gosh, when I was growing up, that was so inappropriate. And now we just our level, I guess the bar of, I don't know, obscenity has changed, and like
acceptedness, like what we accept. I think that's where like it's where like you become torn though, because you can see like a place for it, and then you have that argument, like you said, you read that book to your students in 5th grade for years. And I would be mind blown to know that they were addressing the topic of suicide. I would want to shelter my son from that personally. But then it's like you said, kids are exposed to these things anyways. I feel like, telling them some things kind of puts it in their mind when they didn't know about it before. But then, like you said, this day and age, they're being exposed to it. Both of my nephew's father committed suicide. So, they're already exposed to this. What is there to shelter them from? A story like that could save their life one day. A statistic of a parent that did that. So it really is just like a soft spot, and you can see like the book addresses how such a big topic and controversy of censorship. So that's a good point.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that about how your family's been touched by suicide. In my class, just from knowing the parents, knowing the children, having those strong relationships, a little boy in my class had just his mother had committed suicide. The year I had him, that summer she had committed suicide on her front porch, and he walked up and saw it. And I mean, he was going through massive trauma. So I had a big discussion with his grandmother, who was in charge of him now. And, we discussed, should we read it? Should I not? Should I have him in the room? And I talked with the counselor, and it was like a whole thing. And ultimately, we talked to him about it, and he wanted to be there and listen to the book. So, but I think being aware and know the relationships that you have, had I not known that about him, that probably would have been detrimental if I just started reading that book one day in class. But he was for it. He knew. We had a big discussion about it. So I don't know.
And then you could be sensitive to the conversations that you had, knowing that that's what was going on with him.
Very, very. But would I do that today? Doubt it. Not after the news now. I would avoid it.
But that's what I mean. It's kind of disheartening. It's almost like teachers have become this like villain, when really, I mean, I think about it all the time. I mean, I see my students more than I see my own personal children. Like, I love them and I care for them. And, you read things about censorship, and, it's almost like we're being attacked. Like the teachers are there to instill all of these things, and that's why we're going to take these books away. And really, we're just trying to, love and give them a safe place to be able to make their own opinions and share what their thoughts and feelings are. So I take that away from it too.
There was something else on March I wanted to share with y'all. I didn't even think about, somewhere in here, it says that teachers and librarians, here you go, when teachers or librarians select only certain kinds of books to avoid controversy in the classroom or among parents, they are selecting. Are they selecting or are they censoring? Ooh.
Mhm. Yes, I remember reading that too.
And I was like, wow.
Censorship versus selecting,
I was like,
right?
ooh,
Like
that's
you be
deep.
like, what
Hmm.
am I?
What am I doing?
Yeah,
But I'm
trying
thinking,
to keep our
girl, I just want to keep my
jobs.
job. That's all I
Exactly.
want to do.
That's what we're trying to not get fired because
Yes, yes. I'm
they've
like,
scared us into
yes,
making
ma'am.
sure we've
Get
vetted
into an
everything.
agenda, you know.
Hmm.
But I guess, you just try to steer away from, like, you wouldn't talk about your personal politics.
Sure.
You just kind of try to stay away from those things in the books. Luckily, I feel like with first grade, it doesn't come up too often. Our characters are usually very,
Hmm.
Yes.
fictional and cartoonish and whatnot. But
I do have interestingly, I have one student this year who has two moms.
mm,
And there was a conversation that we were having at the beginning of the school year, and he was sharing this. And another one of my students turned and looked at him and said, well, you can't have two moms. You're supposed to have a mom and a dad. And
mm,
immediately I'm like, how am I going to initiate this, like help guide this conversation in a way that they can understand what's happening, but then also or I'm not going to be, called up to the front office by the end of the day on how I'm instilling that it's okay to do this. Um,
You say, let's go to recess.
right.
it just,
Okay.
it's that everyone's different and everyone's
Yes.
family's different. And I wish
Yeah.
I could read this book, All Are Welcome here, because
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that what you said? Everyone's different and
yeah,
just
that's
kind of
kind of like,
generalize it.
yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah.
really what like a first grade
All fam-
appropriate response
Yeah.
is.
All families look different.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And yeah, just to keep
Crazy.
safe
Yes.
answers.
Safe answers.
Safe answers. I like that. Safe answers. Keep my job in my house. Holy
Right.
Exactly.
You
goodness
said
gracious.
that could you tell me again the passage on page 88 because I thought that
It's
was really
right at the
good.
very top, and it actually starts on page 87.
Okay.
Catherine Patterson, she says, stories are meant to be open-ended and told in such a way so that the readers can find themselves somewhere in the story. When censored, the invitation to be part of the story and identify and empathize is lost. Books give us emotional practice to go through realistic experiences like death and learn how we can react to it. I
Yeah.
really love that. And she's the author of Bridge to Terabithia,
Mm-hmm.
which was censored, which is funny because now it's like,
Yeah.
what? But it actually beside it, I wrote, my shadow is purple. Like that's kind of, and right before that says, blah, 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 blah. This author feels that censoring what is really going on is ignoring what is realistic in life. I'm like, yikes. Okay.
Yeah.
But like
Some
you, and again, I guess middle school, definitely high school, but like fifth grade is when you start really, kids know that families are this way, or not that they are, but like they start realizing that stuff is different in the world, and it's really their parent views a lot of times.
yeah.
You can pick out the parents' political views, their views on moms and
Mm-hmm.
dads, and
Mhm.
it's interesting
Yeah.
to kind of watch that a little bit more in fifth.
And I think that's almost even more important why they should be allowed to, read and discover so they can form again their own
Sure,
opinions
because
and
it's just
become
mom and
their own
dad opinion.
find
Mhm.
their own identities.
Mhm.
But for a lot of parents, the ones that'll call it out are the ones that are not, they're scared for that, for their children to find their, because what if it's different from theirs? And that a lot of these things topics tear families apart.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that's that fear that was mentioned in here,
Exactly.
fear and power, the
And
reasons for censorship.
parents feel like they have a little bit of power to say what should happen in the school. That was in here too. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. They do. Classic or traditional censorship. It's like, yeah, parents think that's the last place they have a little bit of power.
Yeah. And I feel like if they do feel that strongly, or they have, we'll have our reasons as parents why we don't do or don't want our kids to be exposed to something. I think that's okay too. But don't, ruin it for everybody else.
Right.
Just,
Right.
be like, well, I prefer for my child not to participate in
Sure.
this, give them an alternative assignment or something,
Mhm.
I agree. there's some conversations that I feel like would be best to be had at home, you know, with
Mm-hmm. Oh,
my
definitely.
children, you know.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Girl, we would
Definitely.
still steer clear in my class. I'm like, if there's a question about it, I'm not going there.
You should ask your mom or dad when you get home.
Yes, your trusted adult is what we always say. Talk to a trusted adult.
Right.
Oh, great. Anything else so good in the book that you girls found? Just very aha moments. I liked what Judy Bloom had to say. She had a great quote on page 87. She wrote about what oh yes, remember the where are you, God? It's me, Margaret. I remember that book being like a big woo when I was in school. Girls go through, she starts her cycle or something. But I thought what she had to say was kind of great. She wrote about what she thought young children and teenagers should be able to discuss responsibly, you know. Again, maybe that should be more of at home, some of those conversations.
Yeah. But you know, still having that choice for it to be like a library pick. Because what if she doesn't have anybody at home to talk to about it?
Absolutely.
You know, books allow you to feel like you're not alone. Somebody else has been through before.
Take the shame away.
Yeah, right. So even if it's not something that, you know, you're going to use for the curriculum or to teach your class, I think it should still be available as a selection for somebody on the shelf in the library to pick up and, you know, and have that choice to if that's what they want to read or not.
Agreed. And isn't it funny that when a book is banned, and we saw this happen in our middle schools in Cobb County, and I know definitely in Marietta City, when books are banned, that's when they fly off the shelf. Like that's when they start getting sold out everywhere, and like does the opposite of what it's intended to do. What is the book? It's the most recently in middle school that was burned, like called Flame or something. Flamer. And like kids couldn't even get their hands on it fast enough once it was banned or whatever. I think I don't know what it's about. Is it about
I can't remember specifically. I know there was, because it's a graphic novel, so I think there were some illustrations that people were interested in. But same thing with like My Shadow's Purple, with that whole issue that happened, you know, when we got our Scholastic, you know, those little magazines you get at the beginning of the year to go home. It's, you know, that whole thing was happening right at the end of the school year and the start of the school year. And we're sending home this Scholastic magazine. And what's on the very front cover of it?
No.
Absolutely. So it was like, do we send this home? Do we not send it home? Like that teacher got that book from the Scholastic Book Fair at the school.
And she lost her whole job.
Her whole job.
That's insane. Like what? That's irony if I've ever seen it. I think I would have just boycotted her being fired and threw them all in the trash.
I know.
Like, what are y'all trying to set us up to?
Yes. I think the parent because that school is right down from us. And one of my good friends who I used to teach with, she's the principal there. And she said that, of course, there was more to the story than what the news was saying. As I have found in my own personal life, like I've seen, I knew there was more to the story that they were putting out there, and the story was not all given to the public. But she said there was way more to the story, and it wasn't so much the book, but the activities that were done with the book afterwards that had an agenda with it. But the mom that caused the big stink is like a middle school teacher right down the road here, and it's like, come on, why wouldn't you call the teacher and be like? Hey, I mean, I just would settle that with the teacher.
Yeah.
I think that was inappropriate.
Yeah.
I thought the book was fabulous. I mean, I did too. Reading it.
I figured it had to have been something else. Like, it can't be this simple.
I think they said there was, she said there was definitely more to the story than what Channel 2 decided to say.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, though, that's how the news decided to, like, that's the story they went with. It was just about a book, but.
Yeah. But we know better.
Yes.
Censorship of that information right there.
Yes,
how they want to spin the story.
They do want to fit their agenda.
Yeah.
So how did y'all like Words on Fire?
I loved it. I love historical fiction. It's always been like my go-to choice. So it was I got through it very quickly because I was very engrossed in the whole story.
Me too.
Yeah, I was worried about how finishing it, but it was a page turner. It was easy to read, so that was good. And I enjoyed it too. I had a little tear at the end. I was a little moved.
I was not expecting her parents to show back up.
I
I
did
thought they were
not.
gone.
Yeah.
And I liked how all of the characters were like connected to each other, like a little bit at a time, you would, come to the realization of who
So was
Lucas
Ben
was
her
and who Ben
grandfather?
was.
Yeah.
Ben's her grandfather?
Ben was the
Yeah.
grandfather, yeah.
I didn't picture him being that old in my mind. I pictured him younger, not like Lucas and her, but I don't know why. And in the end, I was like, what? Ben
I
looks
didn't either. That's why I was
I did, because I envisioned him old because they kept making him cough and just like kept talking about how grumpy he was in his patch. But
yeah.
yeah, I like how they slowly peel back the layers of the relationships in the story. That was good. And then I did do the author, read the author information and visited her Instagram,
Oh,
and it did make me think about authenticity, because I found out she was born and raised in Utah. As for some reason in my head, the author was Audra for
yeah.
me.
yes,
Like this
Lithuanian.
lithium
Lithuanian.
writer.
yes.
Thank
Yeah.
you. I couldn't get the words out. But no, she's American. So I was like, okay, I wonder what kind of research, she did
Sure.
to write this book, and, what would be the perspective of a native from that country of, how they feel like how authentic they felt like the story was.
Mhm.
But the end of the book did give some good like historical background, and, about that revolution and
Mhm.
how it unfolded. So that was good because I was curious.
Mhm.
In the book chat that I forget our professor's name, but in the book chat, she said that she would not read this with fifth grade. And I thought she's like, I absolutely would not read this with fifth grade. And I was like, and again,
Hmm.
maybe the children, like knowing your class, come back to relationships, but I felt like it would be completely fine for fifth graders that I serve. I was like, I didn't see anything out of the ordinary, but I'd be interested to hear her thoughts a little bit more about that.
Right. Yeah.
My kiddos could handle this, I think. But of course, I
Yeah.
am the one that went with the suicide book. So
Right. That's
there might be a reason why I'm not a homeroom teacher right now. No, but I enjoyed the book as well. And what I really liked, especially with children's literature or young adult literature, I love how they were weaving in like real life knowledge, like especially towards the end when Audra gives her big speech and she says, you take away our language, our culture, our ideas. Um, that takes away our identities. As long as we have our books, we cannot be crushed, we cannot be forgotten. And just really going on how books provide the history and of cultures. I thought there's a lot of really good life lessons about what books do besides just something for idle time. Even in the beginning when she's learning to read and she's like, oh my gosh, these letters turned into words and these words turn into sentences and the sentences turn into thoughts. And I thought there's a lot of really good information here that you could apply to real life and what books do for you. And just in real life of how, if you can, like literacy provides so many doors to be open for you if you're literate versus when she couldn't read, how much she changed and what role that played in. But I liked the real lessons that were kind of plugged in here and there about books. I appreciated that.
Yeah, that was I loved the part of there was this one quote. Where did I write it down? When she was given when she was going to betray, she was going to turn Lucas in, or if she was going to try to save her parents. And that one quote where she's asking herself, like, isn't enough for me just to simply be a letter A, or do I want to know more about what Lucas is doing and what Milda is doing? That was probably, I love that takeaway, like she was just being exposed to books and why is this happening? Why is everyone so worried about, getting books to Milda's house or out of Milda's house? So I thought I really liked that takeaway.
That was part of her transformation. How she went from being meek and quiet and uneducated in a sense to when she found words. Those words gave her a voice and gave her power and confidence. Once she made that decision. I think that was definitely a defining moment for Audra in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And think about how like a young girl reading this could identify with that transition, because like we were saying earlier, so many times your ideas come from your parents or whatever. And she was doing what her parents always wanted her to do by keeping her out of the book smuggling. You know, they did kind of keep her in the shadow for safety reasons and everything else. And then when she made that transition, she was kind of having to go against what her parents, you know, had planned for her when she was young, and she had to, like you said, make the choice to become educated and strong and determined. I just thought about a young girl reading this could really identify with that, because there's those times in your life when you know there's a fork in the road and you can go this way and stay safe, or you can go this way and be more of a risk taker, and they could apply that to real life in those situations.
Mm-hmm.
I like the part also, like, you know, when you read a book and when you read like a poem and stuff, there's always deeper meanings. And I know in fifth grade, we always talk about the theme and the message. And, you know, this book is really, or this poem is really about leaves, you know, a tree shedding their leaves, but can we go deeper? And in the book, it talks about Lucas is giving her a poem, and it's about a forest that's being cut down, you know, all the trees are being chopped. And she's like, you know, but this is just a poem about a forest. And he's like, but there's deeper meaning. And all of a sudden she has an aha moment, and she's like, oh my goodness, they're destroying our country, just like the barren forest was destroyed. And realizing that words can have deeper meanings than just what's on the surface, you know. And I thought that was really great, coming from a fifth grade viewpoint. We always try to teach our kids that, you know, that there's so much more to it. You know, let's go deeper here. Is it really just about a tree being cut down? No.
It's that critical literacy, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Literacy.
ma'am. So I like that too. I love that part. I marked it in my book.
I just love like her character and just the courageousness. Like, I mean, I just can't imagine her like running away from her house as it's being burned down and her parents are being taken away. And she's got this package she thinks is, you know, like, what am I need to go, you know, and get this to Milda. And then when she finds out it's a book, like how her character develops from that point to the very end, where she's writing stories and she's saving, you know, the people from the church and doing all that she can to do that. I thought it was really cool to see her change in that perspective too.
So what do you think would happen like in a part 2? Like she reunites with her parents. What do you think the next, like,
Her and Lucas get married for sure.
Yeah, they did get married and had
and had the
kids
babies. Yep. I
Yep.
want to know more of that story. Like,
Yes.
do they hold things from their children, or like, what is life like now that?
Sure.
Yeah, I would assume it would go on to talk about how the, you know, the revolution played out and their involvement in that, because, you know, they weren't free at the end of the book. But I did like this one part where it said, although oh my God, I gotta read that word to say it. I've been reading it the whole time. I'm gonna say Lithuanian wasn't freed until 19 something. There's like they was free way before
1918.
Thank you. And they were free, you know, way before that, because they, you know, because of their books. I didn't highlight in my book, but that was one quote that I liked toward the end. I can find it. I'll let y'all know, but y'all can move on if you want to.
I'm glad that you looked up the author to see, you know, because that's, I didn't even think about that. But I did look up some of the, back to our textbook, I looked up some of the websites that it gave, one in particular about censored books. But I was like, okay, I'd like to see what they have to say. And it's not even working anymore. It was like, can't find the server. I was like, I quit looking for it. And then I started looking up some of the journals that it mentions, and I was like, I better get off my county computer.
No, okay.
I was like, banned books and all these things.
I was like, what are you doing? What you have up your sleeve?
Coming after me. Yes. I have started the next book that we're supposed to read, Front Desk, and we do have an author that is writing from her, like she's writing about her culture that she is from. So she'll be what?
Yeah, I feel like she did a good job though, Miss Jennifer, and I did like the acknowledgments at the end, because that was, you know, gave its non-fictional historical context. And she has a lot more books that
Yes,
address a lot of more history,
I
big
know A Night
historical
Divided.
moments.
We read that.
Uh-huh.
We've read that at our school before. It's about the Berlin Wall, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and it goes up, and like her family's on one side, obviously, and then her aunts and cousins and everyone else on the other side. So I know we've read A Night Divided in fifth grade before.
How was that?
I did not
How
read
they
it.
compare to this? Oh, you
I
didn't
did
read it?
not read A Night Divided, but some of our other kids and friends have read it.
Okay.
I've read one called Number the Stars. I'm going to do my book talk on it. I think it's a good one. But A Night Divided is one that my friends have really enjoyed. So I think she's a good author.
Yeah, I thought she did a really good job.
The rescues about so much of this is what we cover in fifth grade. World War I, the Nazi invasion, the Nazis invading Poland, and the Berlin Wall.
So do you think these would be, so these, I mean, are these safe? These are safe.
I would feel, I mean, there's not
would think.
anything controversial. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's the other part of the problem.
Historical
Like, are we
fiction.
just supposed to just erase history? I mean, like,
Right.
that's
crazy. We're not even doing our job
yeah.
as teachers if we can't teach,
Yeah.
teach to the facts. I think it would be okay. And I think it would be okay too. I
would think so.
I know that
So that's good. You have a whole book list now that you could.
Yes, you got all kinds of books to read. I do know that some of our fifth grade classes are reading books that are not on CTLS. They're books that they've just continued to read. They've read them in the past, and I've been out of the classroom for 5 years. I'm an EIP teacher, but 5 years ago, CTLS was a big talk about CTLS. It's great. And I was like, okay, fine. I'm just going to try it. I think what I've got going on is better, but whatever. So I read Esperanza Rising with my class.
That's a good one.
Oh my goodness, it was so good. Well, girl, at the beginning of this year, one of my friends is a media specialist in Powder Springs Elementary, and she was like, Kelly, I've heard that Esperanza Rising is almost a no book.
Oh my!
What's wrong with Esperanza Rising? And it was on CTLS, and now I think it's off. And I'm like, y'all got me.
That was the same thing with All Are Welcome Here. It was on CTLS.
Wow!
And now it's not anymore.
Yep.
That's so. It's just not, and nothing is just like, what's the word? Consistent, or it's always changing and
wishy-washy, back and forth.
What are we supposed to do with that? I say we just, use our own good judgment and keep doing how long have you been teaching, Kelly?
24 years.
And Kristen?
This is my 16th year.
Yeah.
I'm in my 18th year. We're still here.
Yep.
I think we have good judgment,
Yeah.
That's what I mean, just go in your keep to yourself in your room and do what you do, and that's my opinion on it.
Yeah. And like Kelly said, build your relationships with your parents and your students, and that work your way that way.
Yep, they know I have their kids' best interest in mind, and they trust my judgment, and I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's different times.
It's very interesting that some of that stuff is on, they tell you to refer to CTLS, but then it just changes.
And I loved this book because Esperanza Rising, have y'all read it?
Yes.
Yes, it's about migrant workers, and as a teacher, you look for books that you could integrate with your social studies content in fifth grade. The standards are heavy in social studies and science and math. You got to integrate. And so when you find a book like was it A Night Divided? Yep, A Night Divided. Or when you find a book like Esperanza Rising, you're like, oh yay, it's from the time period and I can integrate it. I cannot think of one thing. My children loved the book. The lessons they had on CTLS, I was shocked at how great they were. I mean, they gave me everything I needed. I mean, it was good stuff. I was like, oh my God. And then now to hear that was off the list or off CTLS, I was like, well, shoot. So now
somebody complained. Somebody had a complaint.
But I just want to know, like, who are the people that are on this, like, who are the people who are deciding what goes on the list and what goes off the list and what goes on CTLS, and then what are we going to take off CTLS? It's just interesting that, like, it can't be a large group of people. Like,
And
So
certainly no one in the classroom.
No,
definitely not.
definitely not.
I always felt like as a teacher that I wish I knew more what was going on, like, because every time things are filtered down to us, it's always the county. There are these like shadows of people that we never meet, or I need
Mhm.
to attach more faces and names, and I think we should, as teachers, probably become more not involved, but informative,
Aware.
Sure.
Yeah.
of who are the decision makers like this. So
Mhm.
maybe I might do some
I
research
think
into
what
that.
they do is they put so many things on our plates that we don't have time to know who the decision makers are because we're so overwhelmed with all the things that they're making us do.
Yeah,
Exactly.
We don't have
that's
any
true.
time.
And even when we ask like the administrators or the coaches, like who is when we ask who said this, they don't even know,
Yeah.
they're
Uh-huh.
shadows to them too. I don't know if they're protecting them or or what, but we should know,
Mhm.
we need a little bit more power, say so over what we're doing every day.
I
Now,
agree.
in your classroom, do you have classroom libraries in first grade?
Yes.
Oh
Okay.
yeah,
Were you
absolutely.
advised to go through and vet and all that
You
kind
know,
of stuff?
they never told us to go through. I mean, like we had the scholastic readers, like it was probably 6 years ago, probably they kind of we got the new adoption. So
Mhm.
I honestly haven't gone through those, and I don't have any desire to. They're all like, you know what I mean? They're all loved books. They came from the county, so I'm going with
Mhm.
Yeah.
these are vetted. I'm going to vet them because the county gave them to me.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have time for that.
No,
Uh-huh.
Um,
no. We have
and if
some.
I'm gonna act like Audra and listen out for if the people are coming, I may run in there
Run
and
the
try to.
book.
Take them out real quick.
Sorry, but
Flag it.
until then, I'm not gonna
That's
worry about
funny.
it.
I know, especially in the upper grades, you're looking at chapter books like this, and we have
Right.
bookshelves and bookshelves full of them. And some of my teachers are just like, I've told my children that they only can check out books from the library.
Mm,
You cannot use my personal books, any longer because there's
yeah.
no
Oh
way I
man,
can vet every one of them.
that's tough.
And so teachers have just kind of defaulted to the Learning Commons.
Yeah.
Well, even then, like my media specialist says she is constantly getting like emails of like, hey, pre-read these books or take this book off the shelf or this one's now on the list. Like,
Oh
I
my
mean, just the
gosh.
amount of times I've walked in there and she's, reading a book or trying to figure out what this page said and cross-check it with what this librarian told her. It's just interesting to me, like
That sounds
that
like a
somebody has the
nightmare.
time to do that.
Yeah, that sounds like very difficult, impossible job, really.
Uh-huh.
And how many, I mean, I know it's happened to me, but how many times have you watched a quick little video clip with your children or read a book and you went, oh, and you didn't, I mean, it happens, right? Like we're
Yeah,
humans
you're
and
like, oh,
yeah, turn that page. I mean,
or something you think will be okay. They are like wowed by it, and you're like,
yeah,
guys, it's
yes,
not bad.
just
And they're
skip
like,
over
ooh,
that. I mean, it's going to happen. And I just wish that parents would give a little grace when mistakes like that happen. I don't know. But
I
like
think
I
most
said,
parents do, but then you always have those that want to cause a fuss.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just have to watch out for them and know that those are your parent. I got one this year, so let me be on my
yes.
A's and A's and Q's.
Mm-hmm.
As a
Probably the same
teacher.
ones that get mad at us for having virtual learning days, or like it's our decision to create those.
Yeah, but yes, I have the most to say about everything.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so
Um,
I was going back to what you were saying about the fifth grade, your fifth grade teachers and those chapter books and just having to keep their library to themselves. So then it's not even accessible to the kids anymore out of,
Mm-hmm. Fear.
fear for
Sure.
their own job. That's
Yeah, it
interesting.
is. And I believe there was a time, I know for me, there was a time when I feel like I could justify whatever like the suicide, the one part in the book. I feel like, I could have justified that and stuff, but now the climate now, like that was like 15, 20 years ago, I could have.
Yeah.
And I believe that my principal would have had my back. I really do. I believe some of my other parents probably would have gone to bat for me too, but not now. It's changed so much.
Everybody's so scary, like.
Yes, and it's almost like they're like a gotcha, like trying to get you sometimes. I feel like that's a little bit of the environment we're in now. So yeah, nowadays I probably wouldn't let them go through my books either. If I
Right.
had, so I'm an EIP teacher, so my babies are below grade level readers, and I have a scripted program, Read 180.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Makes it very easy for you, huh?
Yes, ma'am. So my life is easy, and so they're not choosing books from my bookshelf anyway, so I'm good. But
I feel like that's an oxymoron, how it talks about, the world is becoming so much smaller through technology and kids are being exposed to so much more. Then, I think the place for censorship should be growing or changing with that, like they are being exposed to these things now. Let's, allow them opportunities to explore, in different forms. The internet is not censored.
No, that's what I mean. Like we would be
Anything
a
they
safe
want.
place. Yeah, safe space for them to explore and question and
Exactly,
kind of
because
get out thoughts and feelings as opposed to turning on Google and
to develop those minds to process what they can see, have some kind of guidance versus just going out
factual
there and
information.
looking it up on their own, and it could be true or not true, and we're supposed to be helping to mold these little minds, and now we're playing it too safe to want to be able to do that. So I think it actually makes it more dangerous, and for the children growing up now, that they're not having any guidance in what they see and they're exposed to. That's scary.
that's
That's
the
why
other thing too, like the lack of guidance. Like, I mean, I think since COVID and just the differences that I'm seeing with, my families and my students and parents, like we're having a big issue at my school now with, having we all of a sudden have all these discipline referrals and all these things are happening, and because of the lack of
parent
parenting, we
involvement.
feel like that our
Yeah.
students are getting, they're just not
Yeah.
supported and guided because the parents are too engrossed in social media or what's happening on
Absolutely. It's definitely a trend. I see it too. We're seeing it across the board in different. I wonder what that is. Is it that just that was COVID and the kids being at home too much for them, like an overload, and then once they went back to school, they were just like relieved, and then it just kind of was like hands off, because I've seen it too. It's just like they're not involved the way they used to be.
No, just like, first grade, we do a lot of like theme days and little, fun things like that. And we're finding it hard to get parents to like, say that they want to come help or donate this or that, or even have any idea that we're doing a theme day or anything.
Wow.
I've really like, as coming back from COVID, it's like a whole different world, in my opinion, with students and parents.
I know in the upper grades, again, third, fourth, fifth is who I work with. Kind of piggyback off what you were saying about just parental involvement not being there. I push into a classroom for math, and math in fifth grade is such a big deal, and it's so many standards. And I am shocked at the number of children who don't do their homework. And now homework, I mean 5, 6 problems, 10 max. And I'm just like, are your parents not checking these things anymore? And then we'll have a meeting with a parent because she had no idea that her son's grades were like they are. And we're like, whoa, we have parent view. Your child's not doing his homework. Like it's bizarre in the upper grades, the lack of parenting and the hands off, I guess. It's just like, what? So I don't know if it's COVID. I don't know what it is, but But it's just
We
like,
don't even give out homework anymore because nobody was doing it. It's
Uh-huh.
like paper down and then we got our paper allotment got taken away. Our trash bag allotment got taken away. We don't even have soap now. Like what is, but that's a whole nother story.
oh,
But I
girl, I got
think
to hear about that later. We got to re-record.
a whole nother story. I think some of the involvement I can say, maybe to be fair, is that everything's going digital and CTLS.
Mhm.
So we've been for years trying to get all of our parents connected to
Sure.
CTLS. You'll be surprised how many we have that still aren't connected. And we're like,
No.
even now in elementary school, report cards go through CTLS. They
Mhm.
won't let us print them and send them home. So it's just like, if they're not connected, then they're really
Mm.
not connected to what's
Yeah.
going on with their child at
Mhm.
all, because they're not getting any communication. They don't send paper communication home anymore.
Now,
So
our dismissal is run through CTLS now. So wait till you get that. Because if
yeah,
the parents have to
Is
go on
it go is
daily
it
and
go
change
safe?
it, go safe.
yes.
And it's like, come
I'm
on,
scared.
people. And the
Yeah.
field trip debacle.
Field
Oh my
trips.
goodness.
Uh-huh. The field trips are intense.
Yep.
That was
It's,
horrible. We used to go on like 3, 4 field trips a year, and now we're down to like one and can't get the money, can't get the parents to go on and figure it out.
yep.
Whew.
And we've
I
had
don't know. Some of
tears
these,
upon tears of babies that can't go. And
Mhm.
that is
isn't
crazy.
it? It's like, I don't know.
E-
This is rough.
I know. Like, I mean, in first grade, like going back to the homework situation, like we're not asking, just read with your child, lay in bed with them at
Right.
night and read a book. And we can't
Yeah.
even get our parents to do that. So
Oh,
that,
Like, let's keep it
you know,
simple.
going like that was like going back to Words on Fire and like a connection I
Mhm.
made with it. Just knowing like the importance of books and how they've impacted my life since I was a young girl and how, ever since my girls were babies, like, but I mean, nighttime reading books,
mhm.
it's fascinating to me that parents don't take the time to just read with their kids anymore. Um, let alone,
Yeah.
think about Audra who's smuggling books through
Mhm.
people.
Yeah.
No one cares about books anymore sometimes.
And they were willing to give their life for
Uh-huh.
the book.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. It's a shift. It's a big shift.
Definitely.
I was wondering what some of my fifth graders would think about someone risking their life for a book. I mean, I can see
Mm.
especially some of my boys being like, "What? Like, are you kidding?"
I
But
know.
I just can imagine that conversation that they would have had. Maybe for my
Oh,
Xbox or my iPhone, but not for a book.
mhm.
I don't know if I would have been able to get through to them how important books are.
Exactly. The
But
value of it, the power of
Mm-hmm.
it is just lost on them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's scary. This is our future. This is what coming up behind us, guys.
yes,
Yep.
it
It's
is.
gonna take care of us when we're old and gray.
So we have to keep doing, the best we can to, make at least do it at school, which is
Yes.
made harder now, but just have to find a way to prevail and keep going and help their love for
Mhm.
reading come alive. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a little bit easier in first grade for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But hopefully we can build that foundation for y'all to keep the momentum going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the momentum goes pretty well through fifth, and then I think middle school.
Whole nother ball game,
It
huh?
is. It is. We only can do what we can do.
That's
So,
right.
but up through fifth grade, we can do what we can do for sure.
Well, in relation to, I'm thinking about critical literacy. We just had a collaborative day where our team gets like the day to plan and just have different PLs. And we were hitting on the DOK and asking those more rigorous, higher level thinking questions. And they're going to start doing walkthroughs to see how we're managing that. So I was thinking about, critical literacy and what that should look like now in first grade classroom. And again, as far as the shift, I'm just like those lower level questions. I can't, some of my first graders can't even answer those when I read a book. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, what's a character again? Or who is the character? And they just sit there and then just like eyes wide open, like, And I'm like, you guys want us to take it. So I'm kind of struggling in that aspect, engagement and focus with my first graders,
Mhm.
and just getting them to have the stamina to sit through a mini lesson.
Mhm. But if you were to put on a video, do you not see how they are totally engrossed?
Yeah,
And
they're like
but if you're
little,
trying to teach, it's like this way, that
yeah.
way. I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah.
Oh my God,
Get out
y'all,
the
so
iPad
discouraging.
or a laptop. I had to help open a kindergarten classroom for 5 weeks. And being middle school certified, going down to kindergarten was just culture shock. I came home exhausted. I was like, oh my God, you know. But we had kind of a rough week, first week of school. You know, it's like herding kittens. And
Mhm.
I was like, we're giving them iPads. We went and got the iPad cart, every kid. They were silent
So quiet.
angels. They did not squirm. No one fell out of their seat. I mean, I was like, oh my gosh,
It's scary, isn't
it is
it?
scary.
It's
They're like little zombies.
wild. It's wild. You can see it. And it almost bothers me that we have these programs like Dreambox and Imagine, like, I understand the purpose is all scientifically driven but we're just feeding into it.
Mhm.
It's not helping with their, their what do you call it? Just their being in the moment, their mindfulness.
Mhm.
Yes.
For being able to connect personally, and
Mm-mm.
we're just putting, and it's the same thing when you put them on there with their little headphones. It's just, you
Mhm.
want to get anything done, let them go get on their
Yeah.
computer.
Mhm.
And
That's
I'm
all
like,
they
this
want to
is
do.
not helping the fight at all
Yeah.
No,
for their attention.
no.
So I don't even know. I just try to be theatrical when I'm teaching and
Mhm.
put on a little show
Little
and be
show.
very
I sing.
animated,
I sing lots of
everything.
directions. I sing like I have to keep them going. We sing a
Be
lot.
silly. Yep. We had to be entertainers to
Uh-huh.
to keep their attention and try to get some of that to absorb. So I'm just trying to think of ways now to engage them with the questioning, the heavier questionings, and to make those connections. So
Yeah, that's
hopefully you'll continue to get some good tips and advice through these courses.
mhm.
I think the last one kind of offered some insight, trying to put into practice, but I need to go back and refresh. It's a lot. Everything's moving so fast. You always have time to apply it.
Mhm. Mhm.
How are we looking on our time? Has it
I
been an
think we're
hour?
good, ladies.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
worried.
I think we did good.
That was really good. I loved having the questions. So like the next time, whoever we're in charge, pulling some questions, that was great.
Yeah. Do you want to keep the order like I don't know who is next. If
Kristen, you sent these out? You sent
yeah,
this out?
my friend had those sent to her, so I kind of looked through a list and then I used some of the ones on the back. I used some of the end of the chapter questions.
Yes.
Um,
From our book, from the multicultural book.
uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, I did see that. I thought that part of the book is good. The lesson too. Isn't it like a
Mhm.
lesson?
Yeah, I
Yes, I
like the
did like the
lessons in
lessons.
there.
So we want to keep that going, the
Yeah, I
discussion,
think that's good
whoever's,
to kind of help kind of guide our discussion and then like things to look for when we're reading too. I thought that was good. A good idea.
okay.
And you know what I'm
Okay.
thinking? Do you remember when we were with Dr. Griffin the first time? Yeah, the only time. And he gave us the choice of doing those discussion posts that were 400 to 600 words. And we're going to have to do that again. I'm thinking I like this a little bit better.
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah, because you could do the
bigger.
person or the
Yes. And
mm-hmm.
no one wanted to do this. And I didn't either, honestly. But I also didn't know it
Yeah.
was going to make me write 600 words for every post. I'm like, that's a
Yeah.
paper, dude. That's not a post. But I'm like, hey, I might, if he gives us the
Because
option, this will be
Yeah.
nice.
It's definitely fun. I definitely like this more, I think, to be able to see faces and have a
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely want to see what the synopsis, like what you're thinking is. You all want to, should we start recording or
Yeah,
you
let
want
me
to? Okay.
Oh, I thought we already had.